my loves, happy Sunday. How the flip has your week gone? Welcome to episode 3 of Growing Pains with Jess, because growing older and wiser is hard fucking work, don't we know it? I hope you are well. I am well. I actually find myself quite insufferable these days because every time someone asks me, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm great. And I actually mean it. It's a wonderful thing. I was in therapy on Wednesday and I said to my therapist, do bodies run out of dopamine and serotonin? Like, am I going to stop being able to produce this much happiness? Because I feel like I've had more than my fair share recently. And my therapist told me that that was ridiculous in much nicer, more professional terms. And that, no, this is just what it means to be happy. And wow. I mean, I guess for me, being happy is alien. I genuinely did not know that I could be happy. I thought my brain was broken. I honestly thought I was just a defect human being that wasn't capable of feeling joy consistently, at least. I always had moments of joy, but I never had just contentment, actually. Not that I'm content with everything, don't get me wrong. There's lots of things that I'm not content with, but in myself I feel content, and that's a great thing. So I am, for the foreseeable future, going to be that twat that is like, I'm really good. But trust me, you'll be the first to know the second that changes. And as my therapist said, all of this happiness is essentially like money in the bank for when things go wrong, because life happens. There's going to be some sort of shit that is thrown my way, and at least I have a little bit in the reserves to help me get over it. Things that have happened this week. I went on my third platonic date with that guy that I was talking about in the last episode. We're going strong. We're going steady. Feelings are developing. It's great. We went to a Catherine Ryan show, and Catherine Ryan was wonderful. I mean, she slagged off men for the majority of the show, and I was sat in between two men. So that was an interesting dynamic. But no, she was wonderful. And my platonic date was gorgeous. This bloke that I'm hanging out with, he's just a lovely human being. It's just so fun. Also, I went to a gig by myself. It's my 4th solo gig now. I'm starting to make it a bit of a habit, which I love, because I have never had a bad time at a gig by myself. I went to see Lola Young, who I know everyone on this planet right now knows her for Messy, but she actually does a lot of other fantastic songs, and I'll be honest, Messy I don't think is her best. She does a fantastic song called Conceited, and I love her song Good Books. Check it out if you want. I don't care. And it was a wonderful time. I mean, anyone that goes to solo gigs, I think will agree that there's only one kind of bit that's a little bit nerve-wracking, is the bit when you're walking up to the venue, because there's like a lot of buzz around that venue because hundreds of people are swarming into one location, and the vast majority are with other people, and there is something a bit like jarring about going by yourself, like hey, it's just me. But do you know what? Once you're swallowed up by the sea of people, you soon become fucking invisible. So it was all good. And I managed to get there early. And it was just great vibes. Would recommend every single person on this planet to go to a gig by themselves, because you are already in a sea of people who have a common interest. You already all like this band, this musician, this artist. So it just means that you can immediately connect with the people around you. I mean, I met the bloke that I was dating for the first time in 7 years at a gig. I met the bloke that I'm platonically dating at a gig. I just think it's a great bloody place to get to know people. So go by yourself. Who the fuck cares? Life is too short. Do those experiences solo, baby. What else happened? Oh, of course, I did speak about this in the last episode. I went to a lesbian pub night. Yes, at 30 years old, I have for the first time started to explore my bisexuality. It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, better late than never. And I actually think that's what the bulk of this episode is all going to be about. It's going to be about better late than never. Feeling a bit late to the party, feeling a little bit behind. But Christ, what is behind anymore? Behind what? You know what I mean? So I do want to talk about this this lesbian event. It was essentially a pub full of queer women, and I've never been in a space where it's mostly women, and the only men there were staff, and it's such an incredible, liberating experience just to be around women and not have that feeling of mistrust or that you're unsafe because men are in your space, right? Not all men, obviously. Christ, I'm going to say that, but any man could make you feel unsafe, and to just have none of them there at all was really beautiful. On top of that, obviously, it was incredible meeting so many queer women and being in that space. And as someone who has, really had a hard time figuring out what the heck my sexuality is, and I still have, I'm still figuring that out. It was really nice to be around women who were in that space and to get to know them and to realize that you are very much at home in that community. It was really liberating and affirming. So yay for lesbians. Love them, love them. I do have to ask though, lesbians of London, where are you going? Like, what events, what places are you going? I know that there's La Camionera. I've heard mixed things about that. The event I went to was hosted by Lesbian Supper Club. I know that they do sort of semi-regular events. Where are the rest of you going? Because I feel like there is such a massive lack of spaces and events for queer women that I'm just like, I want to get involved, and I'm like, I don't actually know where. So, honeys, if you know any places, please let me know. I need somewhere to go. I need to meet you guys. I am going to be a little bit honest, and I'm just going to very quickly touch on this because I think it is an issue, and it's an issue that pisses me off, quite frankly, in the gay community. I did hear murmurings of biphobia at the pub night that I was at. And I know it's called a lesbian pub night, but it is open to queer people. It's open to anybody who isn't heterosexual, which therefore would be me. And one of the women there, and she said it in a really nice way. It wasn't malicious or anything, she had her best intentions, but she said to me, when people ask you what sexuality you are, don't say bisexual, as you have been doing. Say you're queer. And I totally appreciate that advice. And I know that she meant that well. But I'm not going to follow that advice because, quite frankly, why the heck should I have to conceal what my sexuality is to make other people feel more comfortable? Isn't that like what gay people went through for a really long time? Isn't that what they had to do? So why am I being expected to do that as a bisexual person just because I'm not like a proper gay as some people in the lesbian community think of me? And I think also the male gay community, I think they also turn their nose up at bisexual men. I don't want to dwell on it, but it just pissed me off a little bit. And I just think we can do a little bit better than that, quite frankly. Let's just all love each other, please, and not judge each other for loving each other. Thank you very much. Now, I said in the last episodes that it took me a really long time to come to terms with my bisexuality, and I have theories as to why that is the case. So this is why I think I was late to figuring out my sexuality at the grand old age of 30 years old. At the age where, you start thinking about sex, you get little sexy thoughts, you get little like tingly feelings down there. I was in quite a toxic household, a unsafe one, an unloving one, and one where, to be honest, I was reduced down to a shell. Like, without sounding dramatic, essentially any differences that I exhibited was punished because that was just seen as too much to handle for my parents. And I think this pattern of repression in order to make myself more palatable for my caretakers basically meant that I had to repress other things that I was feeling. I certainly didn't think I was actually anything other than very, very straight for a very long time. But I do remember snogging most of my female friends and getting fanny flutters. So I feel like that might have been a sign that I did actually fancy women. But, you know, when you're young, it's just, oh, let's just stick my tongue in whoever. Do you know what I mean? Let's just give it a flipping go. But I digress. Like I said, I had to repress. When I reached 18, I left home to go to university, and therefore being out of that toxic household that I'd been brought up in, it allowed a little bit more freedom of the mind. You know, I was suddenly in a place where I was a little bit more able to explore myself and be myself and not repress myself. And I do remember a specific lady who was on my course at uni, and she made it clear that she was into me. I remember we had a conversation in a smoking area of a club, and she told me that she really liked me. She was like, I think you really like me too. And that was the moment, ladies and gentlemen, where really, if I was brave and if I had the capacity mentally to open myself up to that, I would have said, you're right. Instead, I said, you're wrong. She was right. I thought she was very, very pretty, and I thought she was really nice and fun and all of that. However, anyone who has been in survival mode their entire life will tell you it's very, very difficult to open yourself up to the opportunities of life when life is giving you a fucking pummeling. And so opening myself up to the prospect of being bisexual was something that I could not mentally handle. Absolutely fucking not. My life is it's complicated enough. I do not now need to be chucking fucking sexuality concerns into the mix. And so this lovely lady, I shut her down, and that was that. So that was, you know, a little bit sad, but also that's what happens in life. At that point in time, I was not only dealing with, you know, essentially a kind of like PTSD from growing up the way that I grew up, but also I was dealing with life events. My granddad's killed himself. And I had a family member that I don't want to name, but they tried to kill themselves as well, not in relation to my granddad killing himself. Just purely, my family have a real history of mental health problems, and everyone in my family struggles. And so I was dealing with that. I want to talk more about my granddad in another episode, but I think, as you can tell from my voice breaking, I don't think it's funny. I can talk about my granddad to my friends really easily, but there's something about telling other people about what happened to my granddad I find really difficult. That's really strange. I wasn't expecting to get upset. There's something about telling everyone what happened that I'm struggling with, because part of me is thinking, would he want me to tell you guys what happened? And I would say maybe not. So that's where I'm struggling. So that was going on, and my granddad had become a parental figure for me. Not an ideal one, but a former parental figure. And that was one of the last things he ever said to me, actually. He said that I hope that I have been somewhat of a father to you. So losing a parental figure, especially in such a cruel way, whilst dealing with the shitstorm that was in my head at the time, was fucking, I mean, it's too much for a lot of people to handle. And, you know, I feel so sorry for younger me. She was drowning, and there was no one there to send her a life raft. She was literally just doing it on her own. And when all that shit is happening, you just have to get through in whatever way you can. And You're not liberated. You're not free. You're not free to live. You are only confined to survive. And so that is why I think I was so late to coming to terms with my bisexuality. And it's something that I haven't actually heard many people talk about. And it's why I wanted to be open with it. Now, the time that I sort of realised that bisexuality was a part of me was when I was in the middle of my long-term relationship with a man. And I think there's two things in that. I was healing because by this point I'd been in therapy for quite a while. Not thanks to the man that I was with, thanks to myself. I healed because of myself. Secondly, when you're in a long-term heterosexual relationship, it's easier to fantasize about a woman because it's something that you can't act on. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if I was single, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't think about that, because then I'd have to act on it. Whereas when you're in a relationship, it's like, well, I can start to think about this, right? Because it's just a fantasy. And the fantasies stayed a fantasy, and I thought that's all they were. But that itch, anyone who has struggled with their sexuality probably relates to the feeling of that itch of just like, I can't quite repress this. I can't quite put this down to, oh, it's just a fantasy. You know, I'd find myself staring at women on the tube or whatever. You know, I did at the time speak to my ex about this, and there was a time where I was thinking I'd quite like to act on it, but being a man, he wants to be involved, and I did not want him involved. So I knew that I wanted that first experience to be on my own terms by myself and this other lady, whoever that woman may be. And so we come to 30, and now it is the right time for me to start exploring my queerness, because I am mentally ready. I'm in that headspace where I am like, you know, attracting opportunity and experiences into my life. And so all of this talk of you're a little bit behind, you know, you've never slept with a woman. All of this is kind of like, babe, I could not have done it at any other time. This is the right time for me. This is my timeline. And so I will own that to the moon and fucking back. Another thing that I think I'm really behind in is friendships. And this is why, obviously, I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but platonic dating has been a massive thing for me because, again, when you're in survival mode, you do not have the ability to maintain those friendships. And I lost a hell of a lot of friends when I was going through the ringer. Most of my friends departed, and that's fine. I hold nothing against them. They could be having their own issues with capacity, so that's fine. I do not mind. People got to do what they got to do. I do get sad that you know, some people have big groups of friends. I do not, because I couldn't hold on to friends. And so I just find myself that I have lots of friends from lots of different places that I've sort of collected along the way, and they are wonderful human beings. It just sometimes is a little bit sad where you know, people have groups of friends from school or I don't know, whatever, and I don't have that. I still don't have groups of friends particularly, and that's something that I'd like to change. I'll find that. I'll find my group. I'll find my people. It's just a bit sad when you come out of mental health recovery and you look around and you're like, who's left? And the sad fact is, most of the people they've left. They are well on their way. But the people that are still there when you fucking rise out of that rubble, they are your people. They are the loves of your lives. And honestly, I can get teary thinking about the people that have stuck with me through the worst years of my life. And lastly, in terms of relationships, you know, romantic relationships, again, part of me used to feel a little bit behind, because whereas most of my friends who were in serious relationships in their 20s, they are now either married or getting married, I exited that. I U-turned out of, you know, the bought house and the dog and the the boyfriend that could be a husband. And I opted out of that. And I'm thankful every single day that I did that. But it does just put you again on a very different life path than most of your friends. And sometimes that can be lonely, but I am really trying to take it in my stride because thank God I did not marry that man. It's just that funny feeling of, okay, I am no longer traveling the same path as you guys. I'm not traveling the same path as you guys. What's left? My own fucking path. And I'm just figuring that one out. In the next episode, I want to talk about how much things can change in just a short space of time, because I'm going to celebrate the year anniversary of moving into my own flat, living alone, doing the scary thing. I want to talk about that. And also, I want to talk about the fact that it was nearly 5 years ago that we were first put into a COVID lockdown, which seems absolutely batshit fucking crazy. That timeline does not compute in my head. And I know that there's a trend on TikTok at the moment of like, you know, in 5 years time, and lots of people are doing their stories of where they were when that COVID lockdown was announced and where they are now. And I'm seeing lots of quite happy-go-lucky stories. So as much as mine does have a happy ending, it's also a bit of a backwards one. So I want to talk all about that as well. And I know that we find talking about COVID a bit of a dirty topic, but let's fucking talk about it. It might even be a 2-part episode, to be honest, because COVID for me was awful. I actually think awful is too mild a word. Without COVID, I wouldn't have had to confront just how poorly my brain was. And although at the time it was absolutely horrific, it did put me on a path of becoming a more healed person, but only just. I almost didn't make it, and I want to talk to you about that. I feel like, you know, we're getting into the episodes now. I can talk about a few more darker things that I've been through. So, God, on that cheery flipping note, I hope you have a gorgeous day, night, whatever time it is you're listening to this. And I love you very much, always. Bye.